Hi, everyone. I'm Nathan Delack, president of Delack Media Group. I'm joined today by Jason Pounders, the marketing manager at Ryerson. Jason, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks, Nathan.
When the pandemic hit in early 2020, it left companies wondering how their in person conferences and workshops would look. As the months went by, companies had to scramble and kind of come up with plans that made sense for them. Ryerson has been a longtime client of ours and contacted us about helping take their normal in-person event online. And I thought it might be helpful to talk about the project. I know a lot of companies will be in a similar situation. So I thought it'd be educational to take a look behind the scenes, kind of talk about how we did it and give some tips and tricks about how companies can take their conferences and workshops virtually going forward. Jason, my first question that I wanted to dive in was to first bring people up to speed who may not be familiar with your brand. Tell us about Ryerson and talk about your role at the company.
Sure. So I'm the marketing manager for Ryerson. My responsibilities are the traditional, marketing type roles, lead generation, sales enablement, those type things, branding, but also events. Which largely has been trade shows in the past. But given our current, work conditions and pandemic, those have been, non-existent for the last, 12, 13 months. So that's how we found Nathan.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What in the past, what did your events look like? Was it everyone kind of went to one location? What was the layout there?
Yeah, we did trade shows. We had a fairly robust trade show program. We did maybe 10, 12 trade shows a year, all over the US, different shows, different industries that are kind of tied to our industry in the metal distribution. But given enough, we did one trade show last year, everything else was canceled. Going into this year, the beginning of the year, these shows were already canceled. And we're not sure what's going to happen at the end of even this year. One is only scheduled really for November, and that's really iffy at this point. So, we'd fly a team in of some Ryerson people, 3 or 4 people would do the show. We would hire some additional marketing support to do presentations, and we would, see maybe 1,000 people, to come to our booth at a show. It's a very traditional, trade show model, but it's, successful for us. But again, we, just something we haven't been able to do.
And so this was the first year that your company decided to kind of go on its own and host its own event by itself?
Yeah. We've tried a few things in the past, some webinars, really small scale things too, with webinars. But we're trying to get in a more digital mindset on a lot of things we do, right? Through email, through, social media. We attended a virtual conference in August, put on by a bigger organization. And that kind of got me thinking, okay, we could do something on a smaller scale. This was a 3-day event, a lot of moving parts, but I felt like there was still something for us there. So, we said, hey, look, let's try this in the absence of trade shows. Could we get some of our customers to come to us digitally and, bring people in and kind of share a customer experience, via the internet?
That's really interesting because on one hand, having a trade show host the event is one thing, but to take on hosting an event yourself and then also have to do it virtually is kind of a big shift for you guys. Was that a big sell internally?
Yeah, I think we kicked it around for several months, right? Now, we're familiar with Delack. We use, you guys for a lot of our videos. So, but when we were, going through the decision process, could we do this? How would we do this? There was a lot of, I guess, pretty steep, I wouldn't say a huge learning curve, but there's a lot of things, you have to account for, right? That we weren't used to. And, could we, get enough interest in bringing people in? So then you kind of worry about, okay, are we going to get a return on the investment? We haven't done this before. Then, what does the event look like? So there were a lot of, this was kind of a bigger, a trade show program, we're running a 10-minute presentation, right? So this was 4 hours, a lot more had to go into it. So, but, we kind of broke down the pieces and got what we needed.
That's great.
Yeah.
So when you decided to go virtual, I guess everyone's kind of curious when we make that decision, what's our first step? What do we do?
Well, find a good vendor like Delack. I will say, you took a lot of the stress out of, kind of the process. You really helped us with the technical, the visual, making it, jazzing it up, if you will. Yeah, getting those pieces, you kind of handle all that side of that. My focus was then on, getting presenters, getting the content together, getting the questions, finding people to present, who's going to speak, bringing people in from outside the company. So I kind of focused then on, what the show itself would contain, and, a strong partner such as yourself, kind of helped us do the, what on the visual side of it.
Yeah, I felt like we were a good team together.
Absolutely.
Looking back, I don't know how many emails we exchanged over the month or two of planning that we had.
A lot.
But yeah, I felt like it was a really good synergy, and just having that synergy with your vendor, I think, is super important.
Yeah, that's why I think we felt comfortable, coming to you, and you've done a lot of things for us in the past from a video standpoint. So you already have a really good feel of who Ryerson is, what we do, what we're good at. You've been to a lot of our locations. You're familiar with our brand guidelines. You've already got a lot of content. So that certainly helps, right? But even if, those things, we could have turned over to you, even as we were planning this event. But yeah, I think certainly helped smooth out. For you, there was a really, wasn't much of a learning curve for the Ryerson side. You knew who we were and what we were about. So it certainly made things easier. We were, able to get going really, really quickly.
A lot of companies are saying, especially with the advent of Zoom, that, maybe we could just all hop on a Zoom call and kind of do the presentation that way. Do you feel like this is something that you could have pulled off on your own?
Yeah, I think you could do that, right? But I don't think you're going to get the wow factor, right? With doing a high production, shows that we did with you. I think that's really kind of what drove home. It's still really early. I mean, this was just a few days ago, but we're early. We've gotten really good feedback from our customers and employees that attended. They felt like the content was strong and well delivered and timely, which is great. But then I think all of that was just boosted by, great graphics, some background music, some transitions, all those things kind of added to the production value, which I think, just takes it to the next level. Anybody could do a Zoom meeting. We're on them every day, right? But I think to make it entertaining and to get somebody to pay attention for us was almost 4 hours. You really have to do a lot of things to make it entertaining, right? You've got to ask some questions. You got to have, some transitions. You got to have music. You got to have all those things. And, that would be really hard to do on your own. So, yeah, I would say if you had a really, really short meeting, you could do something with Zoom. But, anything really, much longer, you would really want to do some production value.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays are kind of having what I've heard is called like Zoom fatigue,
Yeah, for sure.
So just being able to kind of visually make the show more interesting, things using tools above and beyond what Zoom can do, just helps out the overall production value and keeps it more interesting for people.
Absolutely.
The initial date of your conference was changed. I guess people are curious, how do I pick a date? How did you end up on your date? And what kind of things did you consider when you were looking at the date?
Yeah, so we were thinking end of November, try to beat the year end, capitalize on one of our biggest shows in our industry is in November. So we thought, okay, we could fill the void there. But as we got into planning, we didn't have enough really planned out to make that, and get what we wanted out of it. Plus, we wanted to make sure we had enough time to advertise it and market it and get it in front of our customer. So then we wanted to wait, get past the holidays, but early January, like, okay, new year, people are planning their year. Maybe that's a better, more captive audience. The holidays are in the past. People are kind of getting back in the groove. So we felt like January was a better, time on the calendar. So we ended up doing it January 21st, and I think it served us well.
And is there any emphasis, I guess, on a certain day of the week or a certain time of the day? Like, was there any consideration as to like specifically why you picked, it was a Thursday and it started at 10 a.m.?
Yeah. So, I think just from the things we do in marketing on our side, what we've learned, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays seem to be the best day to kind of get in front of a customer. Even with email opens, we see those days being, have the highest open rate. So we kind of felt like it had to be one of those 3 days. Wednesday would just happen to be the inauguration. We didn't want to compete with that. So we picked Thursday. And then, 10 a.m. Central is kind of, in the middle of everybody's workday, East Coast, West Coast. It wasn't too early for the West Coast. So, they were able to tune in at 8 a.m., which would a little early, but, it's not super, it's the beginning of the workday. But, the majority of our base is kind of in that central time zone. So we felt like we were safe with that. And then, we wanted to, make sure we had plenty to talk about. If we were going to put this investment into something, we didn't want it to be too short, right? But then you kind of have to balance out, how much is too much time. But we landed on about 4 hours. And I feel like, that was probably the right amount of time. And we kind of front loaded the kind of the best stuff at the beginning of the presentation, just in case people need to, jump off, do their thing, get into their work day. They could certainly do that. But I think we landed on a good time, good date, and seemed to work out well for us.
Yeah, your viewership was incredible. I don't know how you felt about it or the feedback from everyone internally, but I think initially we talked about, how many people might attend, and we thought, maybe a few hundred, right?
Yeah, we were like maybe hoping to get 500-600 register and hope, if we can get 200 or 300 to watch it, we'll be, really happy. And we just blew that out of the water. We had over 1,800 register and almost 800 or 800 plus that actually attended and watched. So yeah, we exceeded our greatest expectations with that. That's
great.
Yeah.
How did you end up on your event theme and your colors, and you created a logo for the event?
So yeah, great question. And those are just some things that we were trying to do, around thought leadership. We didn't want to call it Ryerson. We didn't want it to be a Ryerson centric event necessarily. We're promoting some thought leadership. So we kind of wanted to take the selling out of it. Right. And we have a newsletter we called The Gauge, and we were just kind of playing with that and ended up on Engage. But we liked, it's kind of a verb, and, it's getting people to kind of engage with us, digitally. So we kind of liked the play on the word, and we, the spelling we tweaked for metal, as in thickness. So had a little fun with that. And then we thought, okay, well, let's create a logo for this. We'll use it to kind of brand the event itself. Again, kind of keeping it Ryerson neutral, because again, it's not, we really wanted to do this to share information and build value from that standpoint with the customer. And then, we just use our kind of our brand guidelines and colors, for the event itself, to kind of just keep it, kind of reinforce our branding without kind of, using Ryerson per se. So yeah, I think it all came together, polished and professional, and kind of set it apart from, the Ryerson itself, but, still had the Ryerson look and feel.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think a lot of companies, when they think of a virtual event for customers, is, let's brand it with our company. Let's put our company name everywhere. Yeah. But your approach was actually kind of the opposite. Like, let's distinctly brand this virtual event and make it its own kind of thing. And so the event itself, how did you separate those two with the content? How did you make it not so much Ryerson centered?
Yeah, I think, we've really tried to focus maybe the last year, almost 2 years, on just thought leadership, and not just for our Ryerson and our industry in particular, metal distribution, but we also wove in a theme of the event for why metal matters, in a broader scale, right? And this goes to, our shareholders, our competitors, our customers that all use metal. There is value in that, and to promote the renewability of metal itself, right? It's sustainable. It is a green building material, right? There's a lot of positives when you talk about that versus wood, plastic, glass. And then also we're really keen on it's time to kind of reinvest in American building and manufacturing, and that was also a theme we carried into the conference itself. And we're looking for an infrastructure bill, and all those things are going to help grow the economy, grow jobs, grow manufacturing, maybe onshore some of those jobs that went away. But all those things kind of just tied into our theme. But we're wanting to build this community around metal, and that's why we kind of wanted to make it Ryerson neutral, and bringing in people that just had a vested interest in manufacturing and those building and those types of things.
Talk about the conference platform. Some people are wondering, should I do a ticketed event versus or like a free event versus a paid event, or should I put it on YouTube where everyone can see it, or should I put it behind like a registration wall? What did you decide to do with yours?
Yeah, we did put it behind a wall and ask people to register for the event. A few things with that. We did make it free, so we wanted everybody to come in. We didn't want to, make it cost prohibitive for anyone. If multiple people from the same organization wanted to attend or whatever, certainly they could do that at no cost. For us, I think it was just an investment we would have done, maybe in a trade show anyway. So it wasn't really an added cost, as far as a marketing budget goes. And then, to kind of build it, I think there's more value in something if you kind of have to, give a little, like give an email address, right? It's free, but there's still some exchange of information, right? So just a small ask of the attendee to get their contact information, right? And there's some lead generation there for us. Obviously most of our attendees were customers, which is great. But then there's probably some new people that came to us that way too. So we'll look into that and see what we got from a lead gen standpoint. But yeah, we felt like there's a little more, to me, there's more value in something if it's kind of behind a wall. Then you can kind of also control the viewership, right, and who sees it. So you want to maybe just, if your competitors kind of wander in, who they are. But I think those are just some safeguards also for us. So yeah, and having a little more control over where the content is and who can view it.
And for your particular virtual event, we ended up on developing a completely customized website around the event, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's different than just landing on a YouTube link and just watching the video. Like for your particular event, we developed this entire experience around it. Talk about, I guess, the development of the platform and just kind of like the content for that and how that all kind of came together.
Yeah, and I guess that, going into this for the first time, not really sure what kind of options were there, right? Or how would we deploy the conference and where would it live, and how do customers view it and sign up for it. So yeah, we landed on a website with a separate URL for us, and yeah, I think it just gives it a different look and feel, right? It's certainly like and it is almost like an event, right? You're going to this new website. It's a new, you're not, even if you're familiar with Ryerson, you haven't seen this, you've never been in here before, right? We loaded it up with all kinds of content, digital. We had some, new video created. We highlighted it here. We had links to, download our newsletters for the past 3 or 4 months, some other PDF documents that we have. And then, so then you've got a main stage. We had a plan to do a breakout session and run those simultaneously. We ended up not going that route, but we had the option of, kind of having two speakers on at one time, and you could kind of direct traffic accordingly. So, we had the flexibility to do that. Yeah, so I just think it gave it a little more, again, user experience, a little more polish to the overall event. I think that was just another level of making it a better experience for the customer.
This is super helpful to know. Also, I think for the viewers, kind of, okay, you have the date. Now you know where you kind of want to show the event. Now we have to figure out content and speakers for the event. So how did you go about putting together the speakers? You chose some people that were outside of the Ryerson bubble.
Yeah, right. And yeah, that was probably some of the most of the heavy lifting on my side was, who's going to, who we're going to get in here and what are they going to talk about, right? And yeah, it came together really nicely. So we used an economist that we've used before at Ryerson. And so we were familiar with him and his company. So that was kind of an easy pick for us, but we did want to deliver some economic information. So, and I think that was probably one of our best rated, segments of that, but he had a really good presentation. And then, we, as you sit back and you go, what would the customer want to hear from us, right? I guess maybe that should be your first question is, what do you want your customer to know? Or if you're the customer, what would you want to hear from your vendor, right? And we went to our vendors and asked them to come in and do a QA with us. And, there's a lot of market dynamics and, changing really rapidly in our industry right now. And so we wanted to address some of those things, and what better way to talk to our customers like, hey, this is what we're hearing from our supplier, right? So they were gracious enough to come on. We had 3 VPs from our supply chain, our suppliers, and we had a great QA, and that worked out really well. And then we did highlight a few Ryerson people, employees. We have a risk manager. He came in and did a presentation on what we're seeing on commodity pricing. And then we highlighted 2 customers and wanted them to share their experience, not with Ryerson necessarily, but their business. Again, why metal matters to the customer, and hear it from their point of view. And then we highlighted our e-commerce platform and how that's helping solve problems. Working from home, working, odd hours now. We're not necessarily an 8 to 5, workforce currently given our work conditions. So, we were just wanted to make sure customers were aware of, hey, we have a solution for you. If you're, working outside of normal hours, we're available online 24/7. And had a customer speak to that and how they use it. So, we were thinking about getting one more speaker, and we'll look at, as we do this in the future, how we may change up, the content itself. But again, we just kind of went back to, what does the customer want to hear from us, and how do we deliver that?
Yeah, that's great. So after all the speakers were decided, what was kind of the next step for you?
Yeah, so then it was kind of, putting pen to paper. What is the content, for the mill section? We wanted to, map out the questions. Then I kind of ran that through our supply chain to make sure, we were asking relevant questions. And, luckily the economist had his own presentation, which was nice for me. He came up with his own presentation, his own content. And then our risk manager, also, he, has a great presentation he does. So, we also kind of wanted to make sure things flowed well, and we had some themes. So, right. So you kind of have to weave those into, what you're going to talk about, kind of what's the theme of the conference, making sure you work all those into the content itself. But I think we did that really well. Like, it actually came out better than I thought when I watched the final product. But, kind of that's a little bit tricky. I mean, there's a lot of work to get the right, questions, the flow, the theme, all those things kind of have to be worked out kind of together. And then, bring in your presenters or go out and ask your people to do the presentations.
With marketing of the event, how did you get the word out to everyone?
Yeah, it was kind of an all hands on deck. So early on, I mean, right after our website went live, which I believe was like December 3rd or something like that, Nathan. We posted on social media, so we did inviting people. We had the date picked, the time, right? So we wanted the people to sign up. So we did a LinkedIn post um, that week, and then we got into the holidays, so we kind of lost a little bit of time. But as soon as we got back, we put it on our website homepage. We started doing individual posts for the speakers that were going to be speaking at the presentation. We ran those on social, and then you've made a great promo video for us. So we also pushed that on social, and then we deployed the sales teams. Like, hey, sales teams, get your customers to sign up, and I think that's really where the boost came from. We ran a contest for the top five salespeople that brought in customers that were eligible for some prizes. So I think that kind of helped spar some competition and made it a little more fun. So yeah, that helped. So a lot of customer just ask from the sales teams, but we use social, our website. So just a little bit of everything to kind of pull it all together.
Ooh, I love that tip, using
Yeah.
internal uh, uh, game to
Yeah.
get people to sign up. That's good.
Yeah.
So once people were registered, then how often did you find it helpful to communicate with them leading up to the event? How often?
Yeah. So, right. So once they registered, they got an email back saying that they were registered for the event. They could do a calendar, add to their calendar. And then we sent a reminder email earlier in the week of the event. And then we did one the day of, just a few hours before the event, before it opened. So we didn't want to bombard them with emails. So the first email was for them to add to their calendar, an email a few days before the event, and then an email the morning of the event with a link to log in. So yeah, I think those worked well. I know they were talking. Salespeople were talking to their customers as the week of, reminding them to tune in.
Neat. A lot of our clients are looking at the current circumstances with COVID, and they're saying, it's hard for us to do in-person filming. It's hard to get everyone in a location to film or record interviews or presentations. So for your particular event, we kind of went with remote. And I guess give a little behind the scenes of maybe your decision process behind that, and kind of how you felt the remote recording sessions went.
Actually, I think in hindsight, that was even easier than it probably turned out to be. I think we originally thought maybe we would send some cameras to capture some information. I think Zoom ultimately was the easiest way to capture even like this call, but having the Zoom conversations, right? I think you can edit things out, maybe like this segment right here. No, edit things, and make sure that they're polished, right? If there's we noticed some internet delay, right, where we could edit that out. But I think you taking that raw footage, right, and then editing in the background and the transitions and the music and the graphics. I think that's really where the magic is. But I think doing it via Zoom is anything really via internet, but super easy. Almost everybody can do that now. We're all doing it daily in our daily jobs, right? Made it super easy to just get on camera, record this segment, right? You had it immediately. You could do your editing from there. It was super easy to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So your particular virtual event was about 4 hours long. We had 6 different sessions with more speakers than that. Like you mentioned, the Q&A session was kind of a panel discussion, which was pretty cool to have 4 different people in 4 different locations. What's kind of a good length to consider? Like, some people are looking at multiple days, some people are working at 1 day. Like, what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, that was another thing we started looking at how long should it be, and like I said, the one we attended last year was 3 days, which we knew we didn't want to do anything that long. Some of the segments, I did some research on these. They recommended 45-minute max sessions. We only had one that was 60 minutes, and then the rest were 30 or less. So that's kind of probably where I would stick to something. 45 is probably a little better. But we had, our peak attendance was at that 60-minute presentation. So, it's certainly not a deterrent. I think, given much longer than that, it's not the 10 a.m. kind of start time, wasn't first thing in the morning. 10 to 2, you still had plenty of day at the end of the day, right? To walk to work if you, couldn't, or even if you can't stay the whole day. But it wasn't a whole day event either, right? And you can maybe even run this in the background and watch and work if you needed to. So I felt like that was probably a good time for us. And I think even as we start to plan the next one, I think we're going to stick in that 3 to 4 hour window. I think we felt like that's a sweet spot for us. And but also I wouldn't fill it with things that to get it to whatever time, right? I think if you've got solid, presenters and presentations and content, I wouldn't make it long just for the sake of making it longer. Yeah.
And one fun thing that we did too, like between the segments, it's just as if you were like at an in-person event. We kind of built in like commercial breaks almost so that people could get up and walk away if they wanted to. So we ran things like Ryerson videos that we produced in the past. And then you kind of had like a show host. So they did like trivia questions and stuff like that, which I think was fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that kind of just, again, added to, the value of the event. And it did kind of break up the, just not straight presentations all the way through for 4 hours too, right? So yeah, you could, take a break, get coffee, walk away, come back. We did want to pepper in a little Ryerson, not too much. So we, had a few commercial breaks, if you will. I think those went well. And those were, a minute or two. So yeah, I think all of those things, the trivia questions were really cool. The way they played out on the screen, the way that, user experience worked. Got a lot of responses. I was blown away by the amount of responses we got. So that was really cool. I think we might build more into that in the next event. I think we really did too. But yeah, all those things kind of add to the value of the event.
And the live chat was cool as well. You had some of Ryerson reps in there asking questions, answering questions. There was a lot of synergy going on in the chat room too.
Yeah, so we kind of, with everything being pre-recorded, we didn't want it to be just, kind of a sterile, and, we did want some interaction with a customer. We did want questions, and yeah, I think that kind of helped just make the event a little more interactive, right, with a customer. It kept them engaged with us. They were asking questions, and we had some of our, different people that were knowledgeable around the company answering questions as they came over. And any of the ones we couldn't answer, we've returned those via email. So, yeah, I think it's a great way to kind of get the customer, to interact with the event and keep them entertained. And then you're just also kind of, reinforcing your, your interaction with the customer.
Yeah, and just for clarification, we pre-recorded the entire event and then streamed it live. So you had those live elements of the polls and the trivia, and then also the live chat going on as well. I know some people are concerned about having a fully live event, just the technical, challenges with that.
Yeah, and I guess that, you kind of weigh those things, like, should we do some live things or live segments? I think for us, this being the first event, we kind of wanted to take out any just technical, issues at all, and just run it, hit play and kind of walk away. So for us, it was just peace of mind. I think that was the way to go. And we, we might add a live Q&A next time. I don't know. I'm not getting the feedback necessarily. And now that we've done some post-show stuff, I'm not getting that request. So we may just do it the same way. We'll pre-record everything. We'll have chat. We'll interact that way. But yeah, it's easy to just pre-record everything. It's all done, and the day of the event, you know what you've got. And then you can focus on, the chat and the QA from that, and, let everything else play out.
I love what you guys are doing post-event for marketing. Um, if you don't mind just sharing kind of what you're doing now after the event to kind of
Sure.
keep the momentum going.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just from the day of the event, like as the show closed out, we were getting a lot of positive feedback in the chat itself, right? And we left the chat open for maybe 15, 20 minutes after the event ended. So we had a little bit of, time there, but, great feedback. Customers were really, they really enjoyed the event. They saw a lot of value in it. They, called out certain sections and certain presenters, and that was just great to see, right? And then we had already decided before the event we would send some post-show surveys, just to get feedback, or some asking pointed questions, and so we sent one to our team that was on, to get internal feedback, and then the customer group, we sent those that attended, we sent them a separate survey. And then we wanted them to, and we're still getting those. So we just sent those out yesterday. We've already gotten some great responses from what I could tell. And we did ask them to kind of force rank each segment, to kind of see which ones were most popular. So that'll kind of maybe help us guide our decision on what we do next year for presenters. Yeah. And then just kind of overall, like, did they see value? All those kinds of things. So look for, suggestions, improvements, or and then we'll take that, and that'll help us, guide next year's planning. And then, also now what we're going to do is kind of chop up segments and pieces and, sound bites, and we're going to use those on social and through other content marketing that we'll use, throughout the year.
Yeah, I've already seen some of those hitting LinkedIn where you're posting kind of blog posts with quotes. And then we had a whole highlight video from the event that you pushed out. So those are all great ideas to just keep the momentum. It's not just that 3 or 4 hour event.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then, reinforcing it, and the other advantage of having a separate URL, right? We're going to leave the registration open for, a little more time. People can still come in and watch it. Anybody that registered can come back and watch it I think we're going to leave it open for a year, right, Nathan? So they can come in and watch it at their leisure. If they missed a segment or they want to rewatch a segment, they're certainly welcome to do that. And then we're still getting people to go in and register, even after the event to watch it. So a lot of power with that. And then, we're taking all that great content we created and collected during the event. We're just going to repurpose it and use that throughout the year.
Yeah, it's already been a week or so. Yeah, a week since the event. And I think you've had a couple hundred more registrants even after the event sign up to watch the video on demand.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So your numbers have been just amazing. How long should people plan to have a virtual conference? Like when they start until the conference starts, what's the ideal sweet spot?
Yeah, great. So I think when we originally thought November, we didn't have enough time, right? I think we were a little ambitious on timing. And then we ended up, working through the holidays, and we did lose some time, with Christmas break. And then we had about 3 weeks to get everything ready in January for the show. I would give yourself probably 3 good months, especially if it's your first event. I think we could probably do it in less time for the next event for us, but I would make sure for that first event you have plenty of runway, right, to pull everything together, kind of work through what your content of the event is going to be, getting your speakers. And it can be kind of tricky to get speakers. We had to work around a lot of schedules, especially for the mill panel, right? You've got, basically four different people, 4 different work schedules, 4 different, companies coming together to do that. That was tricky. So you want to make sure you've got enough time to kind of work out, and have enough time to get schedules, to line up. Make sure you get enough content built up, for the site. Want to make sure you have enough time to advertise it. So I would maybe give yourself a good 3 months, especially for a first time event.
Yeah, that's super helpful to know. In your case, you're juggling, a lot of different executives from very large companies who are all, have to find time to record these sessions. And they're
Right.
not, Ryerson employees. You're
Correct.
basically asking them a favor, like, hey, can you
Yes.
do this for us? So getting everyone's schedule together must have been challenging.
That was, and doing the mill segment, that was really tricky. And, we ended up doing that in, I think, what, three recordings and not one with all four. And it worked out great. I think the finished product was amazing, given those challenges. But I do think it was well worth it. I think that segment was very popular and people wanted to hear from our mill executives. So, yeah, I think I'd have some ideas on maybe how we'd do that differently next time. Maybe even if we did one, schedule them individually and then edit it, because you've got, edit it together like you did. But maybe we would just do them all individually, and we can talk about that later. But I think that might be the way to go.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen it, we literally had four panelists. Well, three panelists and then a host. And so there's four people on the screen, but they were recorded in three different sessions. So the editing, timing all of that out was interesting.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was probably your most challenging piece to put together, but I think it turned out great. I don't think the average, viewer would have ever have noticed any of those things, right? And I was just there for all three segments, so I know. But it came together great, and it was perfect. So I think, from a stress level, I think we could probably figure something out maybe differently next time.
Yeah, for sure. So Jason, thanks so much for taking the time to share your thoughts on your virtual conference. You guys are super busy right now, so thank you for taking time out of your
Sure.
busy day to talk with us and give us some ideas about, if we're interested in planning future events, what works and what doesn't.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, Nathan.